The plaintiff's ready, Your Honor.
The defense is ready, Your Honor.
All right, let's go ahead and get started then. I'm just gonna read from the script here, make sure we get all the instructions right. Everyone is here and we just got the message to get started. Let's call the case of Marks v. Sonny's Rooftop Bar. My name is Judge Grieve. Scoring judges, please look to the two buttons on the lower left of your screen and turn off your audio and video. These should remain off until the trial ends. You should also have your video set to hide all non-video participants. This means the only people on the screen right now should be the advocates and myself. So can the attorneys go ahead and make appearances?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Connor Wright. On behalf of the plaintiff, I'm joined today by my second chair, Ethan Wright.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. And from the defense?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Nicholas Patel, representing Miss Sonny's Rooftop Bar. And I'm joined today on behalf of my second chair, Miss Emile.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. Thank you, counsel. Do we have any pretrial matters?
Yes, Your Honor, a couple from the plaintiff.
Go
First,
ahead.
Your Honor, we'd like to invoke Rule 603, constructively swearing in all witnesses in trial today.
It shall be so.
Second, Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 9D, all witnesses have a virtual notebook of the exhibits in today's case and can use that to authenticate throughout today's trial.
All right. And is that your understanding as well, defense counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
And with
Anything
that,
further?
we're ready to proceed. Excuse me, Your Honor.
All right. Anything from Mr. Patel?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to clarify that pursuant to Rule 615, all witnesses, excluding party representatives, are constructively sequestered.
So counsel, are you invoking Rule 615, just to be clear?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And if both parties have nothing else, we can go into opening statements from the plaintiff.
Yes,
And
Your
just a
Honor.
little bit of instruction here. So all scoring judges, make sure you're in speaker view. That button is on the upper right of your screen. And attorneys, please remember to mute your audio when the other attorney is speaking. With that, plaintiff counsel is ready to proceed, or you have permission to go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. They saw, they served, and they didn't stop. It's March 24th, 2019. A woman named Jessica Marks is sitting at a table at a rooftop bar. In front of her are two hard seltzers, a crushed can of beer, half a bottle of wine. Jessica, she's slurring her words. Her eyes are bloodshot, vision's blurry. She can hardly even walk straight. She has her friend help her downstairs when she falls straight into the defendant at the base of the steps. Defendant yells over to his bartenders, "We might need to cut this one off." But 40 minutes and 2 shots later, the defendant watches as Jessica Marks leaves his bar. Within a matter of minutes, Jessica is dead at the bottom of a ravine, the BAC of .16. She was only 19 years old. They saw, they served, they never stopped. That's why we're here today. That bar has a name. Sonny's Rooftop Bar. The defendant. The death of Jessica Marks, it could have been avoided. See, the law requires bars like the defendant that serve alcohol to obviously intoxicated minors to be held accountable for any damages that result from it. And today we'll prove, by a preponderance of the evidence, but more likely than not, the defendant served alcohol to an obviously intoxicated minor, and that alcohol caused her death. Do that by showing you how they saw, they served, and they didn't stop. You'll hear from Morgan Levin, Jessica Marks' best friend. She'll tell you how the two of them were minors, how they got into the bar that night, and how Jessica became more and more intoxicated throughout the night. She'll tell you the defendant saw this across 10 interactions, but never stopped serving her drinks. We'll show you pictures of their table that night. Wine, beer, seltzer, shots. Jessica Marks became more and more intoxicated, and her behavior became more and more obvious. We'll present eyewitness testimony that other people in the bar that night saw how intoxicated Jessica was, watched as the defendant brought her more drinks, watched as the defendant didn't stop her from leaving that bar. That's why at the end of this trial, we're going to ask you to find the defendant liable for Jessica Marks' death, because they saw, they served, and they never stopped. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Is defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed when you're ready.
It's a regular Sunday night at the rooftop. There's drinking, dancing, yelling, people coming in and out, up and down the stairs, and Sunny Mehta is all on her own. She's taking orders, serving those orders, checking IDs by hand. She's trying her best, but she can't keep up. It's a frenzy. It's a frenzy, and Jessica Marks was just another face in that crowd. That's what this is about. Not Sunny Mehta seeing and serving and not stopping. That was just a theory that ignored the nature of a business, Miss Marks's lack of obvious symptoms, and just who really is to blame in today's case. In this jurisdiction, it's the plaintiff's burden to prove each and every element of wrongful death by a preponderance of the evidence. You'll find that they'll fail to meet that burden because their theory ignores the nature of a business. Tending a bar is a fast-paced job. You're constantly checking IDs, serving people, taking orders, and making drinks for them. And just Sunny Mehta did it for 13 hours, from 11 a.m. to 12 o'clock. It's not reasonable to believe that a bar owner could keep careful looking over each and every patron in the crowd. You'll also find that even if Sunny Mehta could keep careful watch over Jessica Marks, that she wouldn't find anything, because Jessica Marks wasn't presenting any obvious symptoms. Now, Morgan Levin, the plaintiff's witness, will come up here today and tell you that Jessica Marks was slurring her words and that her eyes were red, but she won't be able to tell us where the employees of the rooftop were when Jessica Marks was acting like that. You'll also hear that Jessica's face wasn't flushed, her speech was coherent, and she wasn't staggering. She wasn't displaying any symptoms that you'd expect from an obviously intoxicated person. Now, what happened to Jessica was a tragedy. And we may look for someone to blame, but it's not that simple. Because if we must assess blame in today's case, it falls on Jessica Marks and her friend. It was Jessica Marks who decided to buy a fake ID and deceive Sunny Mehta. It was Jessica Marks who decided to use that ID to drink alcohol. And it was Jessica Marks who decided to drive. Their theory ignores the nature of a business, Jessica Marks' lack of obvious symptoms, and just who really is to blame in today's case.
The nature of a business. Check it out.
That's why we'll ask that by the close of today's trial, you find Sunny's Rooftop Bar not liable.
Thank you, counsel. Is plaintiff ready to proceed into your case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor. We call Morgan Levin.
You may proceed when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Miss Levin.
Good afternoon.
Did you know Jessica Marks?
Yes, Jess, she was my best friend.
Miss Levin, did you go with Jessica Marks to a bar on March 24th, 2019?
Yes, I did.
Now, what did you do when you got to the bar?
It was Sunny's rooftop bar, so we went up to the rooftop. We got a table and we started ordering.
You said that we started ordering. Did both you and Jessica order drinks?
Yes, we did. It started with a bottle of wine.
Now, did you order those drinks upstairs or downstairs?
Upstairs, up on the rooftop. At least that's what I did. The owner was our server that night, Sunny Mehta. Sunny came around and after we got a table and started asking what we want that night.
Would you recall a picture of that table if we showed it to you in court today?
Yes, sir.
And do you have a virtual exhibit notebook in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Do you have exhibits 12, 13, and 15?
Yes.
Do you recognize these exhibits?
Yes, these were photos from my phone.
Do they appear fair and accurate?
Yes.
Your Honor, we offer exhibits 12, 13, and 15 into evidence.
Are there any objections?
No, Your Honor.
Shall be entered.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Wright, can we get those on the screen? And Your Honor, these timestamps are stipulated. Now, Ms. Levin, how long were you at that bar with Jessica that evening?
We came in around 9 o'clock. I checked my watch and the sky's still light outside. We left around 11:45, so around 3 hours.
How many times throughout that 3 hours did you interact with the defendant?
Maybe 8, 10. I'm not so sure, but every time Sunny came to take our orders, Sunny would ask, would also bring us drinks.
At the end of the night, did you get a receipt?
I did. Jess was visiting me from Philly, so I told her it was my treat.
And Ms. Levin, do you have exhibit 17 in front of you?
Yes.
Is it a fair and accurate exhibit?
Yes,
Do you recognize it?
I do.
Your Honor, this time we offer exhibit 17 into evidence.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay?
Sure, Mr. Patel, if you could explain a bit more.
Your Honor, this exhibit is hearsay. It's an out-of-court statement that's being offered for the truth of the matter.
All right, Mr. Wright, do you have a response?
Yes, Your Honor. Exhibit 17 is a receipt from Sunny's Rooftop Bar. In today's trial, Sunny's Rooftop Bar is an opposing party. This is an admission from an opposing party admission, Your Honor. This falls under 801 D2.
A response from the defense?
Your Honor, though this may come from Sunny's Rooftop Bar, that doesn't mean it's still an admission from the party.
Let's go ahead. I'll overrule the objection. It's well noted. And counsel, Mr. Wright, you may proceed.
Mr. Wright, can we get that on the screen? Now, based on this receipt, Ms. Levin, how many of these drinks did you drink?
I'm pretty sure I had around, I had 3 drinks, a wine, a beer, and a shot.
Do you recall how many of these drinks Jessica had?
The rest? I don't remember drinking all of these by myself.
There are a lot of drinks on this receipt, but I want to talk about those green tea shots at the bottom. Was that your last round of drinks?
Yes, we got them because they were on special.
Now, did you have any interactions with the defendant outside of him taking your order and bringing you drinks?
Interaction. Yes, I remember one instance. Jess and I, we went to the restroom. Jess, she stumbled down the stairs right into Sunny.
Did the defendant say anything when Jessica stumbled into Sunny?
Sunny looked at the other bartender, Frankfurt, and said, "Whoa, we might need to cut this one off."
What time was that?
It was around 10 o'clock.
At any other time, did Jessica do anything to make you think she was drunk?
I mean, the entire night she seemed drunk. Her eyes were bloodshot. She slurred her words.
Do you have a video of Jessica acting that way?
Yes,
Do you have Exhibit 10 in front of you?
I do.
Do you recognize it?
Yes.
Does it appear fair and accurate?
It does.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff offers Exhibit 10.
No objection, Your Honor.
Shall be entered.
Mr. Wright, can we get that exhibit up on the screen? Mr. Wright, it appears that the sound isn't coming through. Can we reshare that with sound?
And we
One
can
moment.
pause for the technical
Of
difficulty.
course. Now, does the court hear the sound on this exhibit?
No,
I'm not
sir,
hearing it.
I have it on my phone, so and I can also try to share this exhibit if that's all right with you.
Yes, let's try that, Ms. Levin, if you have the exhibit in front of you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, everyone.
Just 1 second.
Morgan and I are in. Hi, everyone.
Can the court hear the sound?
Morgan and I are in Hollywood. We're in a bar. It's kind of like a Philly bar, except everything is really, really expensive. $10 for a seltzer. And everyone here wants to be a model, or I'd like to thank the Academy. Mom and Dad, you've inspired me. Okay, well, go big or go home.
Ms. Levin, what time did you record that video?
Jess posted it at 11:11, so around 11 o'clock.
Is that video an accurate representation of how Jessica was acting that night?
Absolutely, and the entire night, Jess was loud. Her eyes were red and watery, and she was slurring, and she didn't make sense like normal.
Are you aware of whether the defendant interacted with Jessica any time after that video was made?
Yes, the video that was around 11 o'clock, and Sunny continued to serve us afterwards. I guess that's the nature of their business.
Did the defendant say anything about how Jessica looked?
Yes, sometime right before our last round, Sunny came and pointed at Jessica and asked me and said to me, I hope this one is not driving.
You said that was before your last round. Did the defendant still serve you drinks after making that statement?
Oh yes. Sunny brought us another round of the green tea shots before we left.
Slevin, I'm sorry I have to ask you this, but what happened after you left?
After we left, I got an Uber. Jess waited for me to get in that Uber. She was always a considerate one. We were driving down this straight highway, around 1,000 feet. 2 minutes after we left the parking lot, her car cut across the lane and went down to a ditch. I found out that she didn't make it.
I'm sorry to hear that, Miss Levin. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
May proceed when ready.
Ms. Levin, I want to ask you some questions about what you said on direct about Jessica Mark's symptoms that night. You said that Jessica was slurring her words.
Yes.
But you can't tell us at what time she was slurring her words, can you?
Not the specific time, but Jess was slurring throughout the night.
Okay, well, you can't tell us a time where Jess was slurring her words and the employees of the rooftop were near, can you?
No, not a time.
And you also said that her eyes were red, didn't you?
Yes, and watery.
That's right. But you can't tell us a time when the employees of the rooftop were near when Jessica exhibited these symptoms, can you?
No, not a time, no.
I also want to talk about what symptoms Jessica didn't exhibit. Her face wasn't flushed.
I don't remember.
Miss Levin, was Jessica's face flushed?
Her face wasn't red, no.
And when you spoke to her, her speech was coherent, right?
But it was.
I also want to talk about how you were served that night. You brought a fake ID to the bar, right?
Yes, a fake.
And could you flip to that ID in your virtual exhibits to exhibit 4?
Yes, sir, I have exhibit 4 in front of me.
And that exhibits a fair and accurate representation of your ID?
And the fake, yes.
Your Honor, at this point, the defense offers exhibit 4.
Are there any objections?
Yes, Your Honor, just hearsay.
All right, response, Mr. Patel.
Your Honor, none of the information on this ID is going to prove the matter asserted. In fact,
Response, Mr. Wright? Or
Yes,
counsel,
Your
go ahead,
Honor,
I'm sorry.
We're not offering any of the statements on the ID for the truth of the matter asserted. In that case, we'd request a limiting instruction and ask the relevance of it.
So just to be clear, are you fine with just a limited instruction or are you objecting to the relevance of the document?
Yes, Your Honor, we'll object under 401 as to the relevance of this first.
All right, so Mr. Patel, let's hear the relevance of the fake ID.
Well, Your Honor, the fake ID and the information presented on it goes to Miss Levin's credibility, as well as the relevance being a very low bar, Your Honor.
May I
So,
respond?
You may go ahead.
It sounds like Mr. Patel is actually offering the statements onto the record. He said the information on it, and that's what we're objecting to.
So what information are we trying to elicit from this exhibit, Mr. Patel?
Your Honor, I misspoke. The information that isn't listed on it is what goes to Miss Levin's credibility.
So I'm going to overrule the objection for now with a limited instruction, but if Mr. Patel goes beyond the information not contained and is trying to establish the truth of some information, please re-raise it at that time.
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Emile, could we get that exhibit up on screen? Now, this is your fake ID, right, Miss Emile, or Miss Levin?
Yes.
And I'd like to ask you, your birthday is January 20th, 2000, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's not what's listed on the ID?
No, sir.
So you lied to the employees of the rooftop?
Yes.
So that you could drink alcohol?
Yes.
And Jessica Marks also had an ID like this, didn't she?
Yes.
She also lied to the employees of the rooftop?
I suppose so.
And I want to make this clear for the members of the jury. At no point did the two of you tell the truth about your age to the employees of the rooftop.
No, not our age.
Thank you, Miss Levin. I want to move on to the end of that, or to what that night was like. So you were up on the roof of the bar, weren't you?
Yes.
And as the night grew on, it was very dark up there, wasn't it?
It was a bit dark, but they have these fairy lights all around, so it wasn't completely pitch dark or anything.
But it was still a little dim, fair to say?
Yes, a bit dim.
And there was people dancing, right?
Oh, yes.
People yelling,
Yes, there was some music.
people drinking, right?
Yes, that's a bar.
And the person who was serving you, Sonny, was serving all these other people, weren't they?
I suppose so.
When Sonny talked to you, she only talked to you for about 30 seconds to a minute. Isn't that right?
About that, yes.
It was never a full conversation.
No, not a full conversation.
And Sonny, she was serving those drinks to you, right?
Yes.
And she was also checking IDs by hand, right?
Yes, he in Frankfurt, yes.
And she was also taking your orders for those drinks, right?
Our orders, Jess and I's order.
Well, yes, Miss Levin.
Yes, she was.
So it's fair to say she was pretty busy, wasn't she?
I suppose so, yes.
Finally, I want to talk about what happened after Jessica crashed that night. You talked to Officer Grimes.
Yes.
And you gave a statement to him when you were talking to him, right?
Yes, sir, I did.
Miss Emile, can we get Exhibit 23 up on screen? Your Honor, this exhibit was already pre-admitted and has been stipulated to. Now, when you were talking to Mr. Grimes about that, about Jessica crashing, he asked you what Jessica had been drinking, right?
It was 2 years ago, but I guess he did, yes.
And you said 3 drinks, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Miss Levin. Your Honor, no further questions.
And
Redirect,
is
Your
there
Honor.
any redirect? You can Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. Ms. Levin, opposing counsel asked you some questions about how long you were interacting with the defendant. He said that the interactions were 30 seconds. How long was that video you took on your phone?
It was, I think, 37 seconds.
And how many times did the defendant come to your table to take your order?
Around 8 to 10 times.
Thank you, Ms. Levin. No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
No
And I believe there's no recross. So if if both parties, if you would prefer a break before defense case in chief, or if you would prefer us to go straight into it.
A short 2-minute break would be fine, Your Honor.
That's amenable with the rules and whatnot. You guys might know better than me. Let's take a 2-minute break.
Yes,
We'll
Your
be
Honor.
back here at 12:37 Pacific time. Both parties present and ready to proceed.
The plaintiff is, Your Honor.
Defense is, Your Honor.
All right, defense, when you're ready, you can call your first witness.
The defense calls Sonny Mehta. May we proceed?
You may.
Good afternoon, Miss Mehta.
Good afternoon.
I want to start with some questions about your work. Could you tell us about your bar?
Yeah, I owned a bar in the past. It was Sunny's Rooftop Bar. We had an amazing rooftop. It was very chill and a very open place for people.
Could you describe the layout of that bar?
Yeah, we had an upstairs and a downstairs. The upstairs held the rooftop, where you could see an amazing sunset in California. And the downstairs held the bar, where you could get drinks if you wanted to.
Well, I want to ask some questions now about the night of March 24th. It was a Sunday, right?
Yes, it was a Sunday.
Could you describe what the rooftop was like that night?
It was a little busier than I'm used to on normal Sundays. We actually had a game going on with the Lakers and the Kings. So it was a little more people than I was used to, and I had to serve them that night.
You said that you were serving them. What else were you doing?
Well, I was taking orders, serving them the drinks. I was basically doing everything that a normal waitstaff did, but I was doing it by myself. Frankfurt was actually making the drinks the whole time.
Who was checking IDs?
I was the one checking the IDs also, because Frankfurt had to stay at the bar. I had to go up to the rooftop and check their IDs if they ever wanted a drink.
Well, I want to ask you some questions about your certification. You're certified by the Responsible Beverage Service course, right?
Objection,
Yes.
Your Honor, leading.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor.
Sustained.
I want to ask you some questions about your certification. How are you certified?
Well, I'm state approved by the Responsible Beverage Services. And in that course, I just learned about obvious intoxication and how alcohol affects the body.
And how can you recognize obvious intoxication?
Well, you can recognize it through symptoms that you may see another person exhibiting. So like slurred speech, flushed face, stumbling, poor coordination, incoherence, stuff like that.
I want to talk about when Jessica arrived that night. Did you see anything amiss with her?
No, she was just another face amongst the crowd. I was still rushing around at that time, and she just went up to the rooftop, so I didn't think much of it.
Did you take notice of her throughout the night?
I took as much notice as I would any patron. I mean, I was making sure that everything was in line, that she was fine that night in case she wanted any other food or anything. But she seemed fine.
Miss Meta, I want to ask you, did you ever see Jessica Marks fall down the stairs?
No, I never saw that.
Jessica Marks, or Miss Meta, I want to make something very clear for the jury. Did you know that Morgan Levin's ID was a fake?
No, at the time I did not know that it was a fake.
Did you know that Jessica Marks' ID was a fake?
No, I didn't. I didn't know that it was a fake at the time.
So why did you serve Jessica Marks?
I thought that she was of age at the time, so I figured that she was above the age of 21 after checking the ID.
Thank you, Miss Meta. Your Honor, no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Plaintiff counsel, are you ready with cross?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Ms. Mehta.
Good afternoon.
I want to start with something you just said on direct exam. You said that you're licensed by the state to sell alcohol, right?
Yes,
You said that Jessica Marks's ID, you knew it was fake, right? During the hearing?
I learned that it was fake afterwards.
I want to talk about her ID in a minute, but I also want to talk about something you said. At no time did you think Jessica was intoxicated, right?
No, I didn't think that she was overtly intoxicated.
Your Honor, at this time, my co-counsel is going to share portions of Exhibit 26 that we want to admit into evidence.
If there's no objection, you may go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor, this is a stipulated authentic exhibit, and the witness, the declarant, is stipulated that he was unavailable pursuant to 804A.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. A question, what makes you say Jessica wasn't perfectly sober? Answer, she was really loud and she wasn't making a lot of sense. Next slide. Question, did Sonny say anything to you about Jessica or her friend? Answer, Sonny didn't say anything to me about Jessica or her friend, but right after Sonny served them drinks and Jessica continued being loud, Sonny and I made eye contact and Sonny did an eye roll. Now, I want to talk about what you saw. It's your testimony. You never saw Jessica speaking loudly, right?
I never said that. I saw Jessica speaking loud. She was loud, yes.
You were here today when we showed a video of Jessica Marks, right?
Yes, I was here for that video.
In that video, you'd agree she was loud, right?
She was loud, yes.
It appeared she was slurring her words.
She was slurring her words.
At
Yes.
the end, she looked like she was confused about which can to pick up.
It would seem so.
And at the end, she even dropped her can. Isn't that true?
She dropped her can. Yeah.
And that girl, you served her 10 times that night. Am I right?
Yeah, 10 or 8. I was back and forth at everyone else's table.
Right? That's 8 to 10 times you were within feet of Jessica Marks. Isn't that true?
Yes,
That night, it's your testimony, Jessica and Morgan, they ordered about the same number of drinks. Is that true?
I just know that they ordered the drinks. I couldn't really tell who consumed them, but
Right. But you do know that every time you went to their table, they both ordered drinks. Isn't that true?
yes, they were both ordering.
So let's talk about that ID. Ms. Mehta, that ID, it was fake, right?
Yes,
There was no height.
Yeah.
There's no weight,
yes,
no gender,
yes,
no eye color.
yes,
And like you said in the hearing, you knew that ID was fake the moment you saw it. Isn't that true?
yes. I saw it in my deposition in the moment, but like I said, it was really busy on Sunday and I was rushing, and I didn't plan on checking IDs by hand because normally we did have scanners.
Right. You didn't plan on checking IDs by hand, but that's the ID you saw, right?
It was.
Now, you're also aware from your deposition that her blood alcohol content was 0.16. Isn't that true?
Yes, I was made aware of that.
You're aware from your training that that's twice the legal limit for an adult, right?
Yes,
That's 16 times the legal limit for someone Jessica's age, right?
yes.
Thank you, Ms. Mehta. No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Is there any redirect for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Ms. Mehta, Mr. Wright just asked you some questions about how you saw the ID on March 24th. When you saw it, why didn't you see that it was a fake?
Like I said, I was really busy. I was the only one serving people on the rooftop that night, and I had to rush up and down the stairs to get other people's drinks. I was making time to check the IDs, but like I said, I hadn't planned to check them by hand because I didn't expect that the scanners would break that day.
Thank you, Ms. Mehta. Your Honor, no further questions.
Is there any recross based on that?
No recross, Your Honor.
All right. Is there anything further from the defense?
No, Your Honor. The defense rests.
All right. In that case, Ms. Mehta, you are excused. And at this point, I will refer to the competitors once again if you would like a brief recess before closing arguments.
The plaintiff's okay with continuing if the defense is.
We're ready to proceed, Your Honor.
All right. In that case, over to my script here. We will now hear closing arguments from each party. Everyone should please switch back to speaker view. Also, since both witnesses have completed their testimony, you can complete the witness portion of your route. And with that, plaintiff, whenever you are ready, you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. They saw, they served, and they didn't stop. It's as simple as that. One point that night, defendant walked up to Jessica's table with some drinks. Jessica was loud. She was slurring her words. She appeared exactly like she did in the video. The defendant placed those drinks on her table, and the second she did, that bar became liable. So let me take you through the evidence and show you exactly how we've met our burden in this case. See, today, members of the jury, we had to prove to you three things. The defendant saw Jessica, was clearly drunk, served her just a single drink more, and those drinks played a role in her death. Let's start with that first point. The defendant saw. Members of the jury, today you learned Jessica Marks was slurring her words. Her eyes were bloodshot, her vision was blurry. You learned that at one point in the middle of that night, Jessica fell down the stairs right into the defendant's arms. The defendant yelled out to her employees, "We need to cut this one off." She acknowledged in front of the whole bar, and the whole bar watched. We also learned that an eyewitness saw that Jessica appeared drunk. You don't even have to take Morgan's word for it. Let's take a look at that video again.
Hi everyone, Morgan and I are in Hollywood. We're at a bar. It's kind of like a Philly bar, except everything is really, really expensive. $10 for a seltzer. And everyone here wants to be a model or an actress. I'd like to thank the Academy. Mom and Dad, you've inspired me. Okay, well, go big or go home.
Even if you don't take that video as evidence of her displaying clear signs of intoxication, today you learned there was another witness, an eyewitness named Stevie Reggers, just a guy at the bar that night. We read in portions of what he had to say. Mr. Wright, can we get that on the screen? These are the portions we read. You learned today that Stevie Reggers said she was really loud, wasn't making a lot of sense. As well as, but right after Sonny served them alcohol and Jessica continued being loud, Sonny and I made eye contact and Sonny did an eye roll. Members of the jury, that's the case. This is an eyewitness seeing that the defendant acknowledged that Jessica Marks was clearly drunk, but continued to serve her alcohol. That's proof by a preponderance of the evidence. The defendant saw Jessica was clearly drunk. So let's move to the next point. The defendant served her again. You learned that the night of March 24th, the defendant served her drink after drink after drink across 3 different time points. Across 10 interactions, all throughout the night. You saw exactly what Jessica ordered with that receipt. That last round of drinks, it wasn't until the end of the night, after that video was recorded, after the defendant saw that Jessica was clearly intoxicated and acknowledged it to multiple people at the bar. The defendant served. Those drinks caused her death. There is no dispute in today's case. In fact, members of the jury, before we even started this trial, Exhibit 1 was pre-admitted. Exhibit 22 was pre-admitted, and that shows the BAC that night. Just 30 seconds after getting on the road, Jessica drove off the road, crashed at the bottom of a ravine. Blood alcohol content was 0.16. You heard from the defendant that that's twice the legal limit for an adult and 16 times the legal limit for someone her age. The defendant didn't stop her. Those drinks were a substantial factor in her death. The defendant was required by law to stop her. That's why we ask you to hold them accountable, to find them liable for Jessica's death. Because they saw, they served, and they didn't stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Defense counsel, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
You can go ahead when you're.
Now, Mr. Wright just came up here and told you that Miss Mehta served Jessica Marks drink after drink while she was obviously intoxicated. But that's just a theory that ignores the nature of a business, Miss Marks' obvious lack of symptoms, and just really who is to blame in today's case. Now, Mr. Wright had to prove each and every element of wrongful death by a preponderance of the evidence. And he failed to meet that burden because their theory ignored the nature of a business. Now, as I said, tending a bar is a fast-paced job. You heard from Miss Mehta that she was checking IDs, she was taking orders, and she was serving those orders in a multi-leveled bar for multiple different patrons. You also heard that there was people dancing, there's people yelling, there was people drinking. Mr. Wright just came up here and told us about Stevie Redger, a witness who claims that he saw Jessica Marks yelling and Sonny Mehta acknowledged it. Well, this might seem like an obvious symptom of intoxication out of context. You have to put this in context of a business. There was people yelling. There was people dancing. There was loud music playing. It's very well possible that Jessica Marks could have just been yelling so that Sonny Mehta could have heard her. Her actions were completely in line with everybody else on that rooftop that night, as well as the fact that Sonny Mehta only spent a minute or 30 seconds at each table, and she was serving 12 to 14 different people, all while checking their IDs and serving them drinks. It's just not reasonable for Sonny Mehta to be able to keep careful watch over Jessica Marks. You also heard that even if she did keep careful watch over her, she wouldn't have seen any signs. Because when Morgan Levin came up on stand today and told us that Jessica was slurring her words and that her eyes were red, she couldn't tell us where the employees were when Jessica was slurring her words. She couldn't give us an instance where the employees were when Jessica's eyes were red. Because the employees never saw that. What did they see? They saw a face in the crowd. A face that wasn't flushed. A face that had no problem ordering the next drink and finishing the next drink. Jessica Marks, she wasn't obviously intoxicated that night. Well, we know that what happened in today's case was a tragedy. And that something and someone is what we want to blame. It's not that simple. That's why the defense today has brought forward an affirmative defense of comparative fault. If you find that theoretically that Sonny Mehta is responsible for the death of Jessica Marks, you must also weigh whether Jessica Marks' negligence caused her own death. And if her actions were a substantial factor in her own death, then the ruling is finished. So what did Jessica do in today's case? It's her choices. It's her choices that decided whether she should get a fake ID. It was her choice that led her to deceive Sonny Mehta with that ID. It was her choice to drink with it. It was her choice to get in her car, put her key in the ignition, and drive. Her theory ignores the nature of a business. It ignores Jessica Marks' lack of obvious symptoms. It ignores just who really is to blame in today's case. That's why we're asking that you find Sonny's Rooftop Bar not liable.
Thank you, counsel. Is plaintiff prepared with the rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
The defense just told you that that video, Exhibit 10, is not a clear sign of intoxication. He said that out of context, maybe that would be a sign. He said that there were speakers, the bar was loud, There was music. She had to talk over it. Members of the jury, can you hear music in that video? You hear other people talking in that video. They were in the corner of the rooftop. Jessica and Morgan were completely alone. The fact is, Jessica was loud. Mr. Wright, can we get Exhibit 26 on the screen? When you go into deliberations, you have to look at this. We learned that some random person at the bar saw Jessica, noticed that she was loud, then noticed the defendant served her drinks. That's proof by a preponderance of the evidence. This is not only the witness we called, this is a witness who gave a deposition. Everyone watched the defendant serve alcohol to an obviously intoxicated Jessica Marks. Just 30 seconds after getting on the road that night, Jessica Marks was dead. That's why we asked you to find the defendant liable for her death, because they saw, they served, they never stopped. Thank you.
I'm
Sorry
sorry.
about that.
Did the whole recording cut out for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, it had kicked me.
It was just like a second for me. It
Okay,
didn't really impact anything. I don't know for everybody else.
is everyone back in? Mr. Patel, are you in here? You're back. Okay.
All right, I guess we'll give the judges a few minutes to finish up scoring, and then we'll provide some brief comments.